Hello and welcome to Washington Exec's video series. I'm Amanda Ziadeh with Washington Exec, and with me today is Cameron Chehreh, Chief Technology Officer and Vice President of Presales Engineering at Dell EMC Federal. Thanks so much for joining me today, Cameron.
Absolutely, man. It's always a pleasure to have a conversation with you.
Of course, same here. So today we're actually discussing zero trust as it relates to a recent executive order, cyber incidents, and Dell's capabilities. I wanted to start by asking if you can share some updates in the world of zero trust. There was an executive order on improving the nation's cybersecurity was released in May, for example. How does this impact the federal government?
So it's interesting. I'll bifurcate the answer just a touch. Let's start with the executive order. I'm very excited about the executive order the administration has put out. There's a few reasons for it, and most people who've worked in the business as long as I have, they would look at me and go, why are you excited? It looks like unfunded requirements. I'm excited because the administration did a really nice job, I think, defining very clearly and very crisply some actions or strategies that we really need to be exploring across the government to increase the cybersecurity posture as we execute mission across a lot of the various systems that the United States government, Department of Defense, and intelligence community run. I know they're aggressive. There were some KPIs put in there, things like a zero trust strategy or plan within 31 days of the release of the EO. Those are aggressive timelines. However, what I admire about that and what we learned through the pandemic is we like a challenge. And it's not just industry, but my brothers and sisters that are, in civil service across the government that are civil employees, they rose to the challenge through the pandemic and showed that we could do this work from anywhere, literally almost overnight. And so I think the response to the executive order is going to be a healthy thing because what it's building now is a more quickened ops tempo in the government. Now, its intersection with zero trust is becoming fascinating because I think another compliment, although we have a lot of work to do, and we all recognize that, the government did some great work during the pandemic as we moved towards actually implementing a lot of these pillars or strategies of thinking for zero trust. Things like device security, user security, application security, when you think of Sec DevOps and how they've modernized applications, moving towards the zero trust principles. Although the verdict is still out for a very clear-cut framework that's NIST certified and all these things regarding zero trust, I really do have to compliment, again, everyone in the public sector and government space for what we have accomplished. And I think it's important to celebrate those quick wins and small victories along the way because a lot of great work when the implementation of work from anywhere happened that also was completed across this zero trust strategy. So we're making inroads and strides, and I'm encouraged at what I'm seeing.
Right. And in terms of recent cyber incidents, how have those heightened the need for federal agencies to adopt zero trust?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think what we saw, and I know the pandemic, unfortunately, might be a bit passé today, but it's taught us so many great things. What it taught us is in this remote work or work from anywhere scenario, we also equally saw indexed against that movement that the amount of cyber attacks exponentially increased. I'm going to forget the exact metric, so I apologize, man, but think of it was 300 or 400% increase in cyber attacks as we started to migrate people in March of 2020 into this remote work from anywhere type of scenario. But what we didn't focus on, which I'm very proud of, was, again, the cyber warriors, the cyber defenders across government, just the extraordinary job they did in protecting the attack surface from that increase, that exponential increase in cyber activity that we saw. But you know me, Amanda, I'm always a glass half full kind of guy, but I think there's been a lot of great response to that. But to answer your question crisply, we saw exponential increase in attacks, not necessarily sophistication of attack, just more of the traditional brute force and areas where there is traditional low-hanging fruit. The only area we did see a little bit more rise in was the obvious ones that made the news, like with ransomware. Ransomware people certainly took that opportunity to be able to commit those types of crimes and acts. And we saw a lot more in the phishing space as people were moving to this diversified model of work. We did see an increase in those pretty pervasively.
All right, got it. So from Dell Federal's perspective, why is it important for agencies to adopt zero trust?
What we're looking at from our perspective, Amanda, is pretty critical. We believe that zero trust really is a shift in thinking and cyber thinking. And there's a lot of important work that we are doing to try and help agencies and customers along that journey. Things like our investments in supply chain risk management so that customers can have a higher degree of assurance on the birth, the sovereignty of their technology, the microelectronic supply chain, and how all of that ultimately gets integrated into the solutions and capabilities they purchase from us. But what I would offer you, Amanda, what we lean into with the principles of zero trust is that shift in thinking. And it's really important. And I'll give you a quick example of what I mean by that, because I think this clarifies it quite a bit. It's kind of fascinating. In the cyber world, our thinking was rooted in principles that literally were rooted in the physical world as far back as the Dark Ages, and when we were fighting and using archers and swords. And that principle was interesting. And we used to call it a castle and moat principle, that once I let you over the moat by putting the drawbridge down, you had access to the castle. Well, we see the fallacy in that today, right? These people have access to everything. Today's thinking with zero trust is, I'll let you into the lobby. And then based on who you are, what you need access to professionally, let's say you're a nurse and you're going to be providing healthcare. I'm going to give you a very prescriptive access to the applications and the data that you need to simply perform your job. So it starts with this principle of let me profile the user, what they require access to professionally to gain access to their data and information. So those principles of zero trust are very important because it's really I'll say a cosmic shift in thinking, so to speak, and very welcomed in that business.
And you mentioned supply chain risk management. Are there other tools and capabilities that Dell Federal provides to the government that may help in zero trust?
Absolutely. One of the other key technologies to implement this type of philosophy is software defined. And what I mean by that is it's a software defined infrastructure. And it's not just virtualizing servers or networks. It's the entire virtualization layer to provide this next generation of platform to be able to give users access to streaming applications or applications all the way down to the endpoint level. So this really is about software defined, and it's allowing us to do things like more easily and at capacity and scale, micro-segment the network. So coming back to the zero trust principles, I may only want to give a user a tunnel to travel through that only gets them to from a prescriptive point A to point B, and there's no on-ramps or off-ramps anywhere else. So micro-segmentation, virtualization of the applications themselves, application at a user device level where I control what they have access to, and my cybersecurity policies are implemented in that physical sense through the use of software and the smart use of software.
Understood. Well, thank you, Cameron, for diving into zero trust with us. It's always a pleasure speaking with you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the time, Amanda. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, you too.